Welcome back to Hardball. We're barely a year away from the 2010 election, but we're going to talk about it. Before we go to that election, we're going to get some important primary fights before the big general elections next year. So that's tonight. Look at some of those 5 hot races. I'm fascinated with these races. I'm not kidding. Newsweek's Howard Fineman shares my excitement. He's an MSNBC political analyst. And Chris Saliza writes The Fix for the WashingtonPost.com, a straight, young, brilliant analyst. Let's go first to Massachusetts. On December 8th of this year, it's less than 2 months from now, Democrats have to pick a U.S. Senate primary Democratic winner to replace Senator Ted Kennedy. You got a leader there on the left. That's Martha Coakley, the AG of Massachusetts. Congressman Michael Capuano, who has the famous 8th district that Tip and Jack Kennedy had, and Michael Curley before, James Michael Curley before that. You have the City Year co-founder Alan Kazai and the Boston Celtics co-owner Steve, well, I could do it the Italian way, Paiuca.
Do it the Italian way. I'm always in favor of that.
Paiuca. So what do you think? Paiuca has a shot. Let's go to the top 2 here. Capuano and Coakley. Who wins?
I think Coakley wins. I think what this race is more about than anything else is who didn't run. Joe Kennedy II didn't run. No one with the last name Kennedy.
Ed Markey didn't run.
Ed Markey didn't run.
And
a lot of the big names didn't run. And so I think what you're left with is one candidate who is the woman in the race, no other women in the race, and one candidate with the name ID and the money. That's Coakley.
Is there any way anybody can make a case against her since there's 3 or 4 guys against one woman here? It's hard to make that case.
Well, it is hard to make the case, but the others are going to try based on the idea that in some way or other, by some argument or another, they're closer to the spirit of Kennedy.
Can you get to the left of Martha Coakley?
I think it's possible.
Yes.
I think it's possible. I think that's how at least a couple of them are running. I mean, that's how Capuano is running.
Capuano is
trying to get to her.
He's running that way. He doesn't have the money. He doesn't
How do you get to the left of the AG up there? She's pro-choice. She's pro,
well, but
all
she doesn't. But she's focused on the law and order side of things more than on the human services side of things, shall we say?
Okay.
Capuano is saying, "I'm mayor of Somerville. I can bring you the services."
I get you. I don't want to ruin her chance, but I really like Kay Bailey Hutchinson. She's running against the governor of Texas, who seems like a whack job to me. Rick Perry's talking about secession, all this crazy stuff. He's kind of a fancy guy with blazers. I don't like his style. I don't like what he talks like. What do you think? Can she beat him? She's certainly.
Yes, she absolutely can beat him.
Is this about brains and responsibility in a sense of Texas ought to be responsible and be a little prouder of itself than just having whack jobs as governor?
To be honest, if I agreed with that sentiment, I wouldn't have a job.
Remember, he's a straight, brilliant young.
I think that what you see here is Senator Hutchinson has long been interested in running for governor. Perry has stayed on. Hutchinson, I think, was willing. She let him in 2006. She thought about running. She took a pass, thinking in 2010 he definitely would be.
But is he a little silly? Can you state that as objectively? He's a little silly.
But Chris, silly or not, he's in line. He is in line with many. You're talking about a Texas Republican primary electorate. That is the conservatives of the conservatives. So while it may seem wacky in a general election, it's a small electorate, many of whom agree with him on 10th Amendment and secession.
I think he looks like Oliver Stone there. What do you think?
He's right for a lot of reasons. One of them being that if you're going to attack Perry through the base of the conservative Republican Party in Texas, Kay Bailey Hutchinson isn't necessarily the way to do it.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is Karl Rove, who created all these figures, is kind of hanging back. He's trying to stay out of the way here. But he's responsible for the careers of both Kay Bailey Hutchinson and Rick Perry.
Treasure the state.
And Rick Perry was hired specifically because he would give the adoring glances to George W. Bush.
I look at her and I look at Meg Whitman now in California as women of the future. Let's take a look at the Pennsylvania race where I grew up. Pennsylvania's longtime Republican senator, now Democrat Arlen Specter, faces U.S. Congressman Joe Sestak, the former admiral. That's a race that's not close yet.
Well, to me, one of the interests, it's not close yet. Specter has the name recognition, but Sestak is a fighter, and I think he's an interesting character. What's interesting to me about this is Barack Obama took a big position early on in Specter, and the White House is going to have to really get involved in this to make sure it stays that way. And Specter
Will the Clintons stay out of that race? Because he's a real Clinton guy, Sestak. He's done a lot for them over the years, worked for them in the White House at NSC. Won't Bill Clinton be called upon at some point to get in there and help him?
My guess would be he will, and if you look at what Bill Clinton has done since the election, he's rewarded friends. He's gone and endorsed Gavin Newsom in a very contested.
Well, because he's mad at Jerry Brown.
He's right.
That's
from 1992. Totally agree. He's done 4 events for Kendrick Meek in Florida running for the Senate. Bill Clinton is someone who is fiercely loyal.
So yes, I think the only thing you got to say for Bill, he's a relationship politician. Yep. He's not a transactional guy. He sticks to his old loyalties.
And by the way, both of them are going to have a race on their hands. Whichever one wins.
Toomey could beat either one.
The Republican could beat either one of these.
Who's a better bet against Toomey, ironically?
I am going to guess that Sestak might be a better bet.
I think what you're going to see from Spector is what, Chris, you know this, what you always see from Ron Spector. He's going to raise a ton of money, and he is just going to hammer his opponent. That's what he does, Republican or Democrat.
I'm not taking sides in that one because I would love to moderate that debate. I think that's going to be one of the great debates. Sestak's got to go in at him, and Arlen is unbelievable on defense. Let's take a look at California. You mentioned it. There's a great race between Jerry Brown, who was the youngest governor in the history of the state, wants to be the oldest governor in the history of the state, 30-some years later, against a very attractive, almost too attractive mayor of San Francisco. It's interesting.
You didn't call him fancy.
No, I'm not going to knock him.
Okay. That's what you called Rick Perry.
But I wanted to knock him. Go ahead.
I think Jerry Brown is a master politician.
Who's extremely popular in the Democratic base.
He's 20 points ahead in the polls right now. He's going to be able to run circles around this guy.
Did you ever walk around the streets with him?
Yes.
They love him out there.
And there's no better experience as a political reporter than covering Jerry Brown, I got to tell you.
Gavin Newsom was supposed to be the guy who was going to create a generational choice here. Jerry Brown was elected in the early 1970s as governor. The problem for Gavin Newsom is he has this huge national profile, leader on gay rights issues, gay marriage. He's raised $1.7 million in California. That gets you, about a 15-second.
Why would a Southern Californian, which is where all the votes are,
not run?
3/4 of the people watch Southern California television on cable or on broadcast. Why would any of those people vote for the mayor of San Francisco?
Well, I think it's a big problem. The one option that Gavin Newsom may have, and I don't think this is going to happen, Antonio Villaraigosa, the mayor of Los Angeles, a Hispanic, looked at this race very seriously, decided not to run. Now, I'd be stunned if he endorsed Gavin Newsom, and I'd be even more stunned if all of a sudden Southern California...
No, Villaraigosa is very likely to back Jerry because then he still has a chance to follow later.
Of course. And also, no matter how...
I think you spin when you already got there.
No,
Jerry... You know stuff before I think of it.
Well, of course.
Yeah, okay.
Jerry Brown, I don't care how old he is, reads much younger and cooler than anybody else on the scene. He's a cool guy.
I really like him. Let's go. We're
going
to vote for Jerry Brown. Let's take a look at Florida Governor Charlie Crist, who's a very popular guy in the media. He faces former State House Speaker Marco Rubio, who has the support of people, I believe, of Pat Buchanan, people on the right. That's a Cuban-American guy on the political right against a man of the center right, Charlie Crist. Can he beat Charlie Crist with all the media attention of the governorship?
Maybe. I'll tell you why I think maybe. 2 weeks ago, Chris, I would have said no. Maybe. He raised almost $1 million in the last 3 months. Charlie Crist is an amazing fundraiser, raised $4 million, already well known. Marco Rubio...
Can you beat the fan in the tan? He's got a guy that comes around with the fan and the tan.
If Marco Rubio, and he's already doing it, can turn this into a fight for the future and the soul of the Republican Party, then he can win.
That's what it is already. Carl Rofo, I mentioned before, is backing Rubio. The Club for Growth people, I think, are going to back Rubio. It's going to be, more than any other race, that primary is going to be about the future of the Republican Party in the Obama era.
I think it's going to be fascinating.
And that gives Rubio a chance.
I would love to moderate a debate, and that's a fascinating race to watch. Down there, Rubio, a lot of talk from the right. This is going to be an election in many ways on the Republican side between the organized right, the activist right, and the establishment right.
Exactly.
Anyway, thank you, Howard. I love this stuff, and it's just beginning. There's so much of this left.
You're left.
Howard Fineman, Chris Cillizza, thank you. Up next, now it's President Obama's turn to say what he wants from health care. White House aides are going to be involved now in fashioning the Senate version of the bill. They're going to take what came out of the Finance Committee today, meld it to what came out of the Kennedy Committee, the Health and Labor Committee, and put together the bill. The important thing is, for the first time, White House staff people will be in the room as they work on this bill. The president can't stay on the sidelines any longer. That's what happened tonight. That's the big development. It's now Obama's game to win.